Imagine grooving along, inserting open hi-hat notes and barks at will. Imagine that creative improvisatory feeling where you're creating unique parts in real time. But for so many drummers, this goal just doesn't happen. A lack of left foot coordination leaves you feeling clumsy and inadequate, and combine that with the frustration of now feeling really boring and you're stuck. But not anymore. Today we're talking about the controversial hi-hat adjustment that instantly gets you a better sound and better response out of your hats, how to maximize your hi-hat sizzle by timing your left foot just right, and how to strategically open your hats so that you close them exactly on time, which leads to that crisp cleanliness, preciseness that we're talking about today. And lastly, I'll give you 10 groove examples for actually applying this and actually using it so you can take this and have fun jamming out to songs. Let's dive in. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I help hobby and semi-pro drummers become the musicians others actually want to play with by teaching you the core skills that get you results faster. This is so true for beginner drummers getting started on the right foot, and even if you're an intermediate player or even an advanced player, there are core valuable skills for you to learn and master and brush up on here. So I'm glad you're here hanging out with me today. And hey, how would you like to master the drums the quickest way possible? Because I know you're busy, I know you don't have all day to practice, you want to get results fast so you can reach your goals and play musically and have fun on the drums. The problem is that there are so many things out there that you can practice, but thankfully the truth is that you don't have to practice everything when you know the core essentials that actually get you real results. And that's what I teach you in my free PDF e-guide. It's in the description below, called the 3-part daily practice routine. Know what to practice. This guide gives you some great hand technique tips and exercises, some really deep coordination exercises, whether you're a beginner or actually pretty advanced player, as well as some tips for musicality and ear training. Lots of good stuff. I want this resource in your hands so that you can make faster progress on the drums. Go download it. All right, on with today's lesson. Probably 99% of the time when there's any kind of challenge or frustration going on with hi-hat, the problem is the left foot. And it's very natural to have a weak left foot, right? Because we generally have a weak left hand. And if you're right-handed, probably your left foot is not your great foot unless you're a lefty and you're playing on a backward skit. Most of the time, our right foot's very capable, but left foot not so much. But I want you to know today that you can overcome that weak left foot. We're gonna really target that left foot today, get it operating in time with your hands so that you're really able to control your hats and get the sounds that you want, which really helps you be more creative and improvisatory and create unique grooves. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. All right, step one. I call this the controversial hi-hat adjustment that creates an instantly better response. So really there are 3 adjustments here. 3 main things we want to think about. And the first one is just proper stick placement and angle. Controversial one is our third one we're going to get to in a minute. You want to make sure that you're hitting the hi-hats to optimize the sound that you want. For instance, if you want a tight, very small, tight, articulate kind of closed sound, then you can hit on top with the tip of the stick for that. Most of the time though, when we're playing rock, we want something a little heavier, so we want to be more down on the edge. But where it gets interesting is, well, when you get down on the edge, you start to lose rebound, of course. You start to lose the ability to play quickly and smoothly. It starts to get more cumbersome, it starts to get more clumsy. So that's where you want to find a sweet spot. You don't want to just play on top so that it's easy and fast, because you might want a thicker, heavier, more rock and roll sound. But you also don't want to be way down here. So what I want you to play around with is positioning your stick by default about right here, where you're using the shoulder, maybe even the neck, and you've got a little bit of angle so the tip is not actually touching the top cymbal like that. So you're positioned about right here. So once you figured that out, once you found, okay, this is the stick angle I need, then I want you to adjust your hi-hat height to make this more comfortable. For instance, if your hi-hats are really high, then it's going to be easier for you to play at too steep of an angle. You know, some of those, touring rock drummers out there that are just playing like this and looking crazy. They've got the super high hi-hats so that their arm can be going like this and looking crazy, and that's got to be exhausting for your right shoulder. But they've also got a steep stick angle, and so that's just the way those guys are trying to play. But that's not what we want, because we want things to be easy and fluid. We want to be able to get more speed and even volume for actually less effort. So if you need to lower your hats, lower them down a little bit. You can see how mine are really, they're probably about 6-7 inches above the height of my snare, which with Vic Firth sticks, if I set the stick on the snare right here, the hi-hat is right there around like the T or the H in Vic Firth. So you could use that for reference, because of course this is all going to depend on your height also, so it's all relative. But play around with that height so that you get this comfortable, so your stick placement is comfortable. And then when we actually play open notes, we're going to dig in a little bit more. And so you can continue fine-tuning those adjustments as we get into that. Adjustment number 2, and this one, I don't think this one's too controversial. Not as controversial as the third one we're getting to, but adjustment point number 2, adjust your top hi-hat cymbal to be looser than you think it ought to be. The tendency a lot of times, and I see this all the time with beginner students who are just figuring out how to put together their drum set, or maybe you've played an E-kit for a long time, you switched over to an acoustic kit and you put your hi-hats together, and the assumption is that things need to be screwed tight so that nothing gets too loose, so that nothing falls apart. But what's cool about most hi-hat clutches, at least with pretty much any not totally cheap hi-hat clutches, you can tighten this piece down here all the way. This tightens all the way, and there's even an additional screw a lot of times that'll make sure that this does not come unscrewed. But it's not even necessary. I don't know what happened to mine. Tighten this down, and then use these top nuts right here to actually determine how tight the cymbal is on the clutch. So this is your foundation. This is your anchor. Get that firm. That way it's not going to go anywhere. Then loosen this so that you've got a lot of wiggle right here. It's totally fine to have extra wiggle room, more than you think. You don't want to have so much that it's just sloppy and sloshy all the time. You want to still be able to get a nice crisp sound if you need it, but we want to allow for maximum sizzle. So you've got to have a loose cymbal here if we're going to have that really nice musical sizzly sound that for a lot of drummers tends to be missing. Now, that third adjustment point, the one that is kind of controversial, you may have heard me talk about this before here on the channel, your hi-hat spacing. So the reason why this is controversial, a lot of people disagree with me on this. I want to have at least a 1-inch spacing, but a lot of people, this makes them uncomfortable. It makes a lot of drummers uncomfortable because it means that you're having to really control your spacing with your left foot while playing. Because if you take your foot off, they're open too wide. Like this is too wide for open hat notes. All you're going to hear is the top cymbal, which is just loud. It sounds like a tiny crash cymbal, which is no good. So you're having to use your left foot to control that spacing. Also, a lot of metal drummers who just have one hi-hat want to adjust them so they can take their foot off and the hi-hats be right here so they can play open notes while playing double bass, etc., etc. So it kind of helps eliminate the guesswork if you adjust them with a very small distance, which a lot of drummers like to do. But if you do that, you lose a lot of potential versatility, a lot of potential sound quality, and you limit yourself. So hear me out on this. I want you to try adjusting your hats to be at least an inch apart, maybe a little more. You can aim for that 2 to 3 centimeter range. Even if you're like 1.25 inches, I don't think that's too much. And of course, you want to have a little bit of bottom hat angle too, so that distance is going to vary from side to side. But this is about what that distance needs to look like so that you can get firm chicks, which lead to that crispness. If you want to have crisp open hat notes, you have to have enough distance that you can crisply close them. You also want to be able to play splash as well, which is difficult to do if you don't have much space. And so that's just your immediate test right there. Adjust your distance so that you can play a firm, loud chick, and then a nice, loud splash. Even if it makes you a little uncomfortable right now, and even if you don't think you're going to stick with it, give it a try for this lesson because I think you'll find that it works pretty well. And you can always, adjust a little smaller to suit your taste, but I definitely recommend have a pretty wide open hi-hat adjustment here. All right, moving on to step 2, we want to make sure we're achieving maximum hi-hat sizzle when we play our open notes by timing our left foot just right. This I think is the most interesting thing, and we don't really think about this unless we're really listening to what we're playing, because what ends up happening a lot of times when we play open notes, they end up sounding like this. So watch what's happening up here, but also watch what my left foot's doing. I'm going to play that same kind of thing again. So that might be fine, but I think we can do a lot better. So notice what I was doing there. Every time I played the open note, I had the cymbals opening pretty wide. So like I was wide open when I was hitting it, my foot was going up and then back down. Those were precise, like they were in time, they were precise, they were fine, but I think the sound quality was a little bit clangy, a little bit too metallic. There wasn't enough sizzle there. It was kind of just... It could work because I have this one super loose and I have enough angle. There's a tiny bit of interaction between them. But listen to this other way of playing them. Does that not sound so much cooler? It gives it this cool kind of sucking sound. I can try to make all the mouth noises, but it's not going to do it justice. What ends up happening, if you strike them when they're a little bit looser, then you gradually open them and then close them, you get this really cool sucking sound where it's like the note evolves. The sound quality of that open note is actually evolving throughout its duration. So rather than it just being a static boom, instead it's like this boom, 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 and that's what I want you to be able to do, because that sounds so much cooler. That's what we're breaking down right here. So here's how this works. What we want to do is pretty much keep our heel down. Now, there are times when it makes sense to play heel up on the hi-hat, like if you're keeping time, if you're doing the leg bounce. I'll reference a lesson in the description below. I'll link that if you want to check out the leg bounce. There are plenty of times when it makes sense to play heel up, but we want to be really precise here, and we want to just release a tiny bit of pressure on the hats. This is our absolute step one here. We want to keep our heel down to do this. If our default close note is right here, I might have my heel lifted a tiny bit. I'm putting in some pressure with my big toe so that it's firmly closed. But then to actually start the open note, I'm resting my heel down, which takes a little bit of pressure off right here where my toe is. So it actually sounds like this. And this is really what we want the hi-hats to sound like when we strike them to play that open note. So it doesn't even look like I've opened them at all. Like, you can't visibly see a difference. Maybe the foot plate moves up just a tiny bit, but just enough to go from tight to slightly sizzly and sloshy. So that's a sweet spot you want to find. Now, this might require building a little bit of muscle memory and getting used to, okay, here's my tight sound. Okay, here's my loose sound. And be able to pull that up on demand, because the more consistent you can get with that, the more high quality and musical and crisp and precise your hi-hat open notes are going to be. And so that's the foot position I want you to really learn and get comfortable with, where you've got your heel down, you're just releasing a little bit of that foot pressure on the foot plate so you can get this. Second thing you want to do whenever you play an open note, treat it as an accent. Hit a little bit harder at a little bit of a steeper angle, a little bit further up the stick compared to what you were doing for the closed notes. So if our positioning for the closed notes is right here, especially if we're playing quickly, and we're probably living about right here, then we really want to dig in for the open note. That way it sounds and feels intentional. Sometimes if you don't accent an open note, it almost just sounds accidental, like it wasn't supposed to be there, and it's kind of like, oh, that sounded a little bit sloppy. A lot of times the key to making, this is across the board true on the drums, the key to making something sound really professional and crisp and precise and really nice, high sound quality, is just being intentional about it and really commanding it and saying, like, I'm going to play this, I'm going to make this heard. Just doing that makes it sound a lot better, as opposed to when something's a little bit weak or a little bit wimpy. Sometimes it comes across as, you know, was that a mistake? Was that supposed to be there? It's funny how the average listener can perceive those kinds of things. And so if you accent your open note, just dig in a little more with like the shaft, a little past the shoulder of the stick, you're going to really activate that sizzle, and that's going to give you the sound that you need. So we've gone through step one, step two. Step one was just optimizing, getting some distance, looseness up here, a little bit of bottom hat angle. Get that sweet spot with the stick height, so adjust your hi-hats so that they're a comfortable height so that you've got that good stick height. That's all the step one. Step two is just getting used to that foot position, heel down, releasing a little bit of the pressure so you can get a nice sizzly sound. At that point, you could think of this as you're 2/3 of the way there, because we've just got one more step to go. But this one more step is kind of a tricky one, because we want to really precisely open the hats strategically so that then we can close them exactly in time, which leads to that crisp precision and that really cool musical sucking sound. So as soon as your stick strikes, as soon as we complete step two and we do this, then you want to gradually open the hats. So you're striking them, then gradually opening them, slowly controlled from a heel down position, so that then you can close them exactly when that open note needs to end. And that's why I told you, you've got to have some hi-hat spacing here, because otherwise it's very difficult to just firmly close them without some space. And something I remember when I was in college, I played in jazz band and also played in wind ensemble and orchestra and all of that. And a lot of times our band directors would talk about, mainly speaking to the brass instruments and the woodwind instruments, they would talk a lot about note length, because even if everybody started their notes at the same time, like everybody starts playing at the same time, if they're all cutting off at different times, everything is super sloppy. And so a difference between a really great, marching band and a mediocre marching band, or a great high school orchestra, mediocre high school orchestra, not only is every player precise in when they start their note, but they're precise in when they stop their note. And that's so true with hi-hat on drum set. It's the one instrument where we have total control over note length when we play our open notes. We can control note length on cymbals, but hi-hats, distinctly, that is a thing that we have to control and be mindful of. And you could play an open note, but if you don't end it when it's supposed to end, it doesn't matter if you started it at the right time, it's going to sound really sloppy. Kind of like with fills. It doesn't matter if you start your fill at the right time. If you don't finish it at the right time and come back in on beat one when you're supposed to, it's going to sound and feel sloppy. So that's so important that you're closing it in time. And in order to close it like that, you have to open it. So the whole thing of doing this splashing, this sucking sound, isn't just because we want a cool sound, though I think that's a big reason why I like doing this kind of motion. I want that cool like that, but also it's just a functional, practical thing because we have to open the hats up more so that we can firmly close them. Otherwise, if I just play like this, that works, but that's not as powerful and compelling of an open note. Now, depending on the song or the groove, maybe that's all that it needs. Maybe you want a tiny little splash there, like. So that could be a sound. I'm not saying to only ever make it big and make a big deal out of it. Sometimes it needs to be something more subtle where you're just gently loosening the foot a little bit just to give a thicker note. But I wouldn't even classify that as an open note. I would just call that a thicker, sloshier hi-hat note. So that's kind of its own different thing. When we want to play an open note, we want to play an open note. We want to make a nice big deal out of it and make it sound really cool. So as soon as your stick strikes in that sloshy position, slowly open up the hats so then you can close them in time. So what you've got to do here is decide, okay, what tempo am I playing at? Because how slowly you open is determined by the tempo. And if we're playing something really slow, like, and open, closed, open, closed, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I can't really say with words how quickly you're opening it, so just watch what I'm doing here. I'm just going to ghost play with my hand and do exactly what my left foot would be doing if I were trying to get the sound. I'll play down here for timekeeping. So that's what you want to aim for, and honestly, the slower you're going, the more precision you really have to aim for here because the easier inconsistencies will show, versus when you're going really fast. If you're going really fast, you might not even open them up all the way because it's such a quick note. Like that if they're on offbeats and you're hitting them maybe with the left hand. Where they happen more quickly, so you're not really having to think so much about timing that left foot. You're just opening and then closing back quickly. But doing that cleanly at the higher tempos definitely starts with doing it cleanly at the slow tempos. So even though you've got to think about the motion a little more here at the slow tempos, this is really going to pave the way for you doing this really well at the medium tempos and at the really fast 16th note tempos. So definitely focus in on this, and practice going. And just watching what you're doing here. Maybe even do exactly what I'm doing first. Don't keep time on the hi-hats, but just keep time on a rim or something. Remembering that on that 1 and 2, right there on the end of 1 and the end of 3, we're already loosening, gently loosening ever so slightly. Then we start opening. So tight, loose, open, closed. Tight, loose, open, closed. Hard for me to, I really shouldn't even try to put words to it because it's so hard to fit all that in rather than just letting you watch. So I'll let you watch what's going on here and then work on just emulating that yourself. And then just move your right hand over here and test it out. See, okay, am I getting the sound I want? Is this working? And you can go even slower than that. At that point, when you're going that slow, you hear the sizzle, and then it opens up, and you no longer hear a sizzle, then it closes. And so it starts to take on a different sound quality at that point, at that slow of a tempo. And so probably realistically about 60 beats a minute and up is where this really works. But if you go even slower just for practice sake, that's totally fine. Now, something else important to note. When I'm closing the hats, I'm allowing my heel to go up. Open, closed, because that's got to be a firm close. If I try to close it firmly while my heel is down, I'm not going to be able to put quite as much weight and quite as much pressure into it. You might be able to pull that off, it might be fine, but I like that extra emphasis of just putting a little more weight into it. It feels very natural, honestly, to rock back and forth from heel. So like right here, if I'm open, heels down, toes are up, and then rock forward to toes down, heel up. It feels very natural. And just make sure that that ending of the note is nice and clean. No wishy-washiness, no flamming between left foot and right hand. Make sure you don't have If anything like that's going on, it means you're closing a little late or closing a little early. Focus on just going. And maybe that's something to target too. Sit here and just practice going, hitting and closing at the same time. Now, the obvious question here might be, well, Stephen, why are we hitting the hi-hats there on beat 2 and 4 if we're closing there? We don't need to hit. And that's true. You could play this. And it would pretty much sound no different. I like the practice of lining up my right hand with my left foot and just the consistency of keeping that timekeeping going. But no rules here saying you have to do that. Definitely there are a lot of grooves where it makes sense to just go. And it can be fun to move your right stick out of the way there to play a backbeat if you're playing a groove like that. So totally up to your personal taste, but it's well worth practicing lining up that left foot with that right hand, because that's a coordination relationship we don't often target, and it's something that we want to have tightly, because you might also play a left foot pattern like this in a ride groove. Let's say you're playing you want to make sure that left foot lines up with that right hand, because we're not always keeping time on the hats. And so that could be a totally its own thing in a scenario where you want to have that right hand, left foot relationship nice and tight. All right, in a moment, we're going to get into the 10 example grooves, which will be really fun. And this will just give you a practical way to really put this stuff in action. But if there's any frustration, any trouble as you're practicing these, just go back to these first 3 steps. Make sure that you've optimized your hi-hats, you've figured out your stick angle, you've got the height where you want it, all of those adjustment points are right and feeling good. And then practice those exact motions of hitting where you've got a nice sizzle and then you're slowly opening and then closing on time. Always zero back in, focus back in on those exact motions there so that you know you've got the core technique down, and then you can apply that in the groove scenarios. one quick note on those 16th ones where we have an open note landing on an offbeat. So if we're counting 16ths, 1 E and 2 E and anytime something lands on an E or an it's going to be played by the left hand if we're doing that alternating sticking there. So whenever that happens, know that we're just repeating the same steps we've done throughout the lesson, the 3 steps, or really the 2 steps regarding the motion and all that you're doing. Repeating those 2 steps that we did with the right hand, now with the left hand. And it's just happening a little bit more quickly, which in a way is a little bit more forgiving. Like I mentioned, how when you're going faster, you're not really having to worry about being quite as precise as far as the opening and the speed at which you open. You just got to make sure you close on time. So if you're having trouble with those, which you very well might, because we're targeting both left hand and left foot, so it could be total weak side, a lot of challenge, but super worth practicing. Sit there and just do this. Doing the exact same motion with your left foot that we did when we're doing. Nothing's changing there, especially when we're going really slow. It's exactly the same. We're just playing it at a different spot and with the left hand. So don't let that confuse you. Just focus in on that. And if you need to wait a bit on that and focus on just the right hand 8th note open notes first, totally cool. You can always come back to this. My goal here with this lesson is to give you beginners something to get going with so you can start being creative on your hats. Give you intermediate players something challenging, so the left hand stuff there with the 16th grooves. And to give you more advanced players just some core review of, all right, let's make sure that this is super solid, make sure my left foot is precise. We can all use some more left foot practice, get our grooves nice and tight. So, hey, as we wrap up, one thing I want to know, tell me in the comments, do you agree or disagree with my somewhat controversial hi-hat adjustment? And if you do disagree, why? I'm curious. If you don't, if you're not for the 1-inch adjustment, if you are a staunch, got to keep my hats closer together, let me know if that's you. Let me know if you disagree. It's fine to disagree. Tell me why, because I'm curious. Or if you like doing it exactly like mine and you've seen me do this and you've started doing yours like this and you're like, Steven, this is the best. I'm so glad you showed this to me. I love hearing that too. So let me know if you agree. Also, which of these steps do you need to focus on the most right now to really rapidly improve the precision and cleanliness of your hi-hat notes? So maybe you just need to do some of that optimization. Maybe you're new to the drums. Maybe you've switched over from an electric kit and you're figuring out how do these hi-hats work because they're nothing like the hats on an E-kit. Or maybe you've just got to actually think about what your left foot is doing. So maybe that focus on that left foot and the precision of loosening and then opening, maybe that's where you need to focus. But figure out where that weak spot is. Figure out exactly what you need to focus on so you can get maximum results from this. Hey, I hope this lesson has helped you out. I hope this has been super valuable and super helpful to you. I hope you have a lot of fun applying this and practicing these grooves. So take action, head over to the practice room. Thanks for watching. Be sure to go download that free PDF e-guide I told you about earlier, the 3-part daily practice routine. It's going to get you faster results, help you really become the drummer you're made to be in less time. And so go grab that, the ultimate resource for busy drummers. All right, have a great week. I'll see you next time. Stay non-glamorous.